Hello and welcome to the My Wool Mitten podcast. My name is Carrie and I'm coming to you from the middle of the Mitten, Michigan's Lower Peninsula, from a small sheep farm where I live with my family all around me, my flock of Shetland and Corriedale sheep, my little dog Bailey, Bee-Cat, and Kyle the Wonder Horse. Well, it's been a while since I've been here, and so I thought I better get something out into the world so that you'd know that I was still around. The summer has gone by quickly. There's been a lot of work. There's been time in the garden. Many of the flowers you're seeing here have gone into the freezer or have been dried for me to experiment with some natural dyeing of my wool later on this year. We harvested a lot of food from the garden. I grew a new-to-me squash with a fancy French name. It's an heirloom, and I was really happy with it. It even grew up into the trees. Autumn came and the leaves turned from red to gold and then disappeared completely. We had many walks in the woods. We found another tree that had fallen, and we looked for hickory nuts, trying to get ahead of the squirrels who really consume them. I want to say thank you to everyone who was happy to hear my news about planting a dye garden and who shared seeds with me. It really, really means a lot. And to me, that means that you'll all be part of the garden when the time comes to plant it. Well, there's going to be a little bit of knitting content here, some exciting updates about the Shetland fleece, a little bit of thought on the state of the world and humanity from my view. Just a few minutes, but it's towards the end, and if you want to skip that, I'll understand. Thank you for being here. If you haven't already, please click like and subscribe and come back to see me again soon. Well, hello and welcome. It's been a long time, hasn't it? It's really good to see you. Thank you for coming back if you're a returning viewer. Thank you for stopping by if you're a new viewer. And if you're somewhere in between, well, just welcome. There has been several new subscriptions lately and watches, and they mostly seem to be around my sock spin along that we do at the beginning of the year. I've done that for 2 years now, and so if you found me through that for whatever reason, if somebody mentioned it or if YouTube brought it up, I'm just glad to have you. And we will be doing that again in January, starting in January of 2024, depending on the state of the world and the state of the farm and the way things are here, but I'm planning to do that again. So anyway, I'm already off on a tangent. I'm not sure what you will have already seen, if I will have shown you some video from around the farm or out in the woods, or just what it will have been, but I think I will have done a little bit of an introduction to start with. But I had all my knits gathered here on the table, and so I thought for practice and to get myself back into the habit of doing this, I'd sit right down and show you a little bit of what I've knit over the summer or since we visited last. It hasn't been very much. I wasn't doing a lot of knitting. I was spending more of my time concentrating on the Shetland fiber, learning my way around that, getting used to working with it. And I'll talk more about that in just a little bit. But I did want to mention some of the knits that I have done, that are finished, that are nearly finished, that are picking back up, that are frogged. There's a few things here. So let me jump right into that. I hope that this mirror won't be a weird glare. We're going to go with it anyway. So the first thing that I want to show you is the one thing that's completely finished, and that is a little sweater for my great-granddaughter who turned 2 in September. And so I had gifted it to her, but I hadn't put the buttons on yet. I wanted to be sure how it was going to fit and how it was going to work for her. So I got it back to put the buttons on, and now it's turned cold and I need to get it back to her. But I will hold it up here, probably hold it in front of my face, so hopefully you will see it. Here it is. And this was called the Magnolia Light or Magnolia Little by Camilla Vlad. I will either put things on the screen or down below because I didn't take notes and I might forget some of these things. But anyway, this is really popular pattern. There's several different ones, adult size, bulky size. And when I was thinking about a sweater for her, when I came across this one, I might have even seen it on someone's podcast. I knew this was the one I wanted to make. Her grandmother, my stepdaughter, has a flower farm, and it's called Magnolia View Flower Farm, and she has a special reason behind that, what a magnolia tree means to her and has meant to her in her lifetime. And part of that has to do with a beautiful magnolia tree that we have here in the farm. And if I remember, I'll put some pictures in here for you. But because the baby or the toddler spends a lot of time with her grandma at the flower farm, I thought having the magnolia cardigan would be great for her. I did make some changes to it. One of the things I did was, and I've been doing that with sweaters a little bit lately, I hate picking up a button band. I'm lazy and haven't figured out how to do that well. So I knit the button band on as I went. I also am kind of weird. I don't like a rib at the bottom and a collar, you know, that's going up and down. What's that, vertically? And then you pick up the button band and the rib is going horizontally. To me, that just doesn't look right. So I did a seed stitch border. I did seed stitch on the neck, seed stitch on the button band, and seed stitch at the bottom. And all I did is just, because this is worked back and forth, I just did 2 columns of seed stitch for the button band. And I think it turned out really good. The other thing that I didn't do, the pattern, which is a really neat little pattern, but it goes all the way around the sweater. And I really didn't think there was a need to have the lace and bobbles around the back side of the sweater for a 2-year-old. I'm not a big fan of bobbles, nups, whichever you decide to call them. But on this, I thought it was cute, but I just did it on the front. Let me hold this up again, or else I'll take a picture and show you. I thought they turned out pretty well. This one is one that, for whatever reason, doesn't stand up quite as well. The others I think I did all right with. And then I didn't do ribbing up into here. I did the seed stitch as well. Another thing about this yarn, this is our farm yarn from a few years ago. And this is Corriedale with, I think, 20% alpaca from a neighbor's farm. And the name of this yarn, my friend Caroline from Honor och Air in Sweden, who is of Nutiden fame, when she saw this, she said that it should be called havre, if I'm saying that correctly, which means oats in Swedish. And my little toddler granddaughter got a pony, got 2 ponies actually, for her birthday. And of course she likes to feed them oats. And so I thought that was a good choice as well for this. So yeah, a really nice pattern. It is a paid for pattern. They've been made a lot of times. But I did make those changes of the button band, of not doing the lace motif all the way around. And the way I did that was to just simply look at the number of stitches in the chart and then kind of center it in those 2 front panels. So yeah, I'm really happy with that. And I've got to get that to her. The little pearl buttons are from the button box, so they are vintage buttons. And I hope that she'll get a lot of wear out of that. So that's the Magnolia Light or Magnolia Little cardigan for my little great-granddaughter. So the only completely finished item that I have. Then I was going through and cleaning up some things and checking out some project bags, and I found a nearly complete sock, and I would have cast this on shortly after I finished my hand spun sock earlier this year in 2023. So this has hand spun, and this is Corriedale, alpaca, and silk. And then this was some commercial, I can't remember if this was commercial yarn or farm yarn, but it's not hand spun. It is hand dyed from a workshop that I took a long time ago, and I was just trying to use it up. And so I did the contrasting color, and then I did that one really loose bind off, and it almost is too loose. See how, although on my leg, it stretches out and is okay. So anyway, those were nearly complete, or this one was. So I finished it up, and I've cast on the toe for the other one. Then my daughter's sweater, which I've talked to you about on a couple of different episodes, which is made from Nuteeden. I'm using up my Nuteeden stash. And this was a free pattern from Knitty. Ione, I think it's called. It is steeked. It was worked in the round. It's going to be steeked. And I'm using up Nuteeden that I have. Now, this should have been finished for her birthday, which was 2 weeks ago. And it is nearly. I have, the body is complete, one sleeve is complete except for finishing the cuffs, and then I have the other sleeve to do. But she wanted, I keep working on the cuff and then taking it over for her to try on to be sure that it's long enough, and then she wanted it to be a little bit more narrow. So I do have the one sleeve finished, except for I've got to go a little longer on the cuff and then cast off. I would normally probably have done both sleeves at the same time, but because I was really customizing this, I thought I'm going to do the one at a time. Took quite detailed notes, made stitch markers for every decrease, so I should be able to mimic that exactly. And then that'll be done. It didn't make it for her birthday this year. It definitely will make it for Christmas. And then I have the steeking to do, but that won't be too bad. And so then that will use up some of my Nuteeden. And then I have a sweater for myself that I want to do out of some more Nuteeden. And I didn't bring that over here, so I might talk about that at the end. I might take a little clip of that later on. So as soon as that sweater is finished, I'm going to pick back up, and I talked about this on another podcast, pick back up for myself a Boscular sweater. Boscular is by Marina Skua. A pattern that I started, and I'm blending some of my new Shetland yarn. I spun myself for the color work. It's a color work yoke, and then so black, and I'm doing the collar and the color work, and then blending into gray of my Corriedale, to me symbolizing the meeting of my new Shetland flock with my Corriedale flock. And I actually had cast on and knit I made it into a turtleneck, and I'd worked down, and I nearly had the color work yoke finished. But I put it aside because I wanted to finish my daughter's sweater. I felt that I needed to do that, not selfishly finish another one for myself. And I'm kind of glad I did, because over this past year, I've lost a fair amount of weight on purpose. And it was planned. It was no fad diet or anything. I did it slowly and with precision. Not precision, what's the word I want? But carefully. And not a huge amount of weight, but it was weight I needed to lose. And so, so I did that over the course of almost a year. But enough so that I need to go down at least one size, maybe two, because even though I didn't really lose weight up here, the fit was just going, by the time I finished the yoke, the body of the sweater and the armholes was going to be way too big. So I have taken it back to the bottom of the neck, and I'm going to figure out, because my yarn, my gauge is off from the pattern, so I'll have to figure that out again, and then pick that up as soon as I finish my daughter's sweater. And so I'm looking forward to doing that. I have the black Shetland all spun ready for that, and I might have it ready in time for Marina's Out of the Dark make-along that she does each year, and maybe I'll pick that back up for that, but I'm looking forward to working on that pattern. And then I've been making just a couple of little, like, little sample mittens and sample socks, you know, that make little ornaments, just to try out some of my yarn. And I guess this might make way to the fiber portion of this. And that is that I've spent the summer and fall working with my Shetland fleece. I do have the flock now of fine fleece Shetlands, and learning about it myself, learning to work with it, and honestly getting very discouraged. It's very different from my Corriedale, of course. Oh, sorry, I probably wiggled the table. Of course, I knew that. But I've worked with wool for so long, I thought I would easily have a handle on this and could get this done. But I didn't. And if you followed me for some time, you know that I made the decision not to sell any raw fleeces. I did, that's not completely true. I did sell a few raw fleeces, but only to people who could come here to the farm and look at the fleeces, check the staple length, sample it themselves, and then if they thought they wanted to work with it, that they could take it. So I've done all kinds of different things. I've washed it by the lock. I've washed it, you know, in a larger portion. I've combed it with my hand combs, which I really love. I've carded it on both a fine wool drum carder and on hand cards. I've played with a blending board with it. I've spun it from the lock. And it all was a lot of work and a lot of waste. And of course, anything that's worth doing is worth taking your time to do well. But I couldn't see where this was going to be a viable thing for me to raise and sell from the farm. The sheep have to pay for themselves. And so selling raw fleeces is how I generally do that. And I just couldn't see how a Shetland is a small sheep and the fleece is small. And then there was a considerable amount of waste. And then there was a lot of waste in the processing. And looking at it, if I were a consumer, if I were buying the fleece, I would have been really unhappy, no matter how beautiful the resulting yarn was. And it is beautiful. It's the thing that kept me going, that the resulting yarn is so fabulous. I just adore it. But I couldn't quite figure the whole thing out. One thing that I did, I visited with a friend who works with a lot of different fleeces, and she really enjoys spinning art yarns and textured yarns. Now, I'm not a huge fan of either of those things, and it's not something I could see myself doing much of. But we did play with it a little bit with some of the locks that would want to nap or make the little curly cues and stuff. And we did have fun doing that. And I'm going to show you a little bit of a skein that's already wound into a ball. Let's see, is this going to show? So some natural colors and a few locks that were dyed. Extremely soft. This hasn't been plied. This is a single. And I did a few others as well. I'm going to move this basket over here because I have these little mitts hanging on the side of it. Let's see if you can see them. I guess I could take them off. So this was just black and gray and white, you know, and it ends up looking like almost like a little fur cuff, and very soft. And then just with the solid black. And this one is one with some of those colors. And this is the Havre yarn. And so I could see myself doing that, but not a lot of it. So, yeah, but good news, exciting news for me. I think I've cracked the code on that fine fleece Shetland. along with a friend of mine. I know how to wash fleece, and I know that that's a big secret to being able to blend this fine wool. That part I knew. It was then being able to process it into something usable. And I think we've got it figured out. And so I'm not quite ready to show you that yet. I don't mean it to be a tease. I'm probably going to show you a little bit, but I'm hoping that maybe at the 1st of December, if not, maybe right after Thanksgiving, I can show you some of what I'm going to have available. And I'm really excited about it. So stay tuned if you're interested in, and I'll talk more about the process when I show you that. But I did just want to touch on some of the difficulties that I've had through this year of working with this fleece. A real learning curve for me. So yeah, but I think I've got it figured out. And that was such a relief to me, because I seriously was thinking, if I can't figure this out, I'm going to keep the Shetlands for another year. But if I have this kind of trouble with the fleece again next year, I need to look at rehoming them. And now, instead, I'm excited about having them. And I'm looking forward to putting the breeding groups together and having lambs again next year. So that's a little update on the fiber and my knitting projects. And then the one other sweater that I wanted to show you, the other sweater and the Nutiden that I wanted to show you. Again, I am planning for the sock spin along at the beginning of the year. Oh, just one second. Sorry about that. Hope that didn't juggle the table too much. But I am planning on doing the sock spin along at the beginning of the year. Like I said, just depending on world events, I guess. But so I'm already thinking about that, and I'm even thinking that there might be some prizes or some giveaways when we do it this year, our 3rd year. So tell me what you've been knitting on, crocheting, spinning. I've really been all about working with the fiber more than knitting, and so it's been kind of all-consuming for me as far as the farm part of my life. Of course, the thing that's all-consuming to me is things that are happening in the world, and I can't let this podcast go by without mentioning some of it. And I can't mention it all. Things are bad in so many places. I don't need to tell you that. But the thing that strikes my heart the most, and I'm just going to say this, is still Ukraine, because that's where my family originated from. My heart is with Ukraine, and not that one conflict is any more crucial than another, because it's not. And somehow it seems that they're all tied together. But I just would like to ask that while we're looking at all the horrors that are going on around the world, that we not forget about Ukraine and what's happening there. It's very important that we not forget about it. At least I think. At least that's what I feel like. I don't know. One of the reasons I haven't podcasted and I haven't been on Instagram all that much is because it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right to sit down and say, I have this yarn, I have this knitting project, I can walk through my woods, I can go to the barn and feed my sheep. It just doesn't feel right to talk about those things or to be lighthearted. And I don't say these things lightheartedly. I will say that my farm and my flock is my life, and I do have a responsibility to those animals and to take care of them. But every day that I do that, it's not without thinking about someone who maybe set about just taking care of their livestock or their farm or a little garden or anything else, and then that's suddenly, massively, hugely taken away from them through no fault of their own. I guess I think so often about that. I mean, we just assume, well, no matter what happens in the world, that I'm able to feed myself, that I'm able to feed my animals, but in the blink of an eye, that can all be taken away. So please don't ever think that I'm not thinking about all of those things, because I am. I don't have answers. I know you don't either, but we'll do what we can, right? So anyway, that was my brief little comment on that. So tell me how you're feeling, how you're doing, what you're thinking about, what you might be knitting or spinning or growing or tending. Because no matter what, no matter how we have to stand up or how we have to fight for our neighbors, for other people in the world, no matter how we have to support them, we also have to support ourselves. And so I hope that you are able to do that. I think of you often. I've missed being here with you. I apologize for being so rusty at doing this. I hope that the video comes out okay and that I get it uploaded and you are able to watch it. I hope that the lighting's not too bad. I'll play this back and see. And I hope to see you again real soon. So there may be a little bit more footage right after this and a little bit of sheep because I know you like to see that. And I will hopefully see you again real soon. Take care.